Hi everyone, Evgeny is back with you today, and in this session we are continuing to test how Windsurf editor and Cascade AI agent works together to help us make our applications better. And the goal of today's session, we are going to take a look at the authentication mechanism. We are going to implement it, and we will be using MongoDB from the previous session, and we'll see how it all works together. Alright, so if you're curious how the real work with Windsurf editor and the AI agent looks like, then please join me in the session. Alright, in this session we are starting to work on securing and personalizing task management API. And today's session we are busy with the first two tasks. We will add basic authentication mechanism, and then we will try to use the real user data from Mongo database. So this is the goal of our today's session. And well, we are already on the proper Git branch feature user auth, and well, let's get started. So our first task would be to add basic authentication, and just a couple of seconds, let's think about that. What would we need here? We are going to introduce Spring Security, so we need a dependency. We do need some basic security configuration. Then we have to protect all our endpoints with security mechanism. And for this session, we will be using Basic Auth for that. It's the simplest one, but we need to start somewhere, right? And then in the first task, we are finishing with user memory. So we will have something which we can reuse, kind of, but it's not a real database. And then later we switch to the second task, and there we would add the user domain model. We would add a specific repository that can read from Mongo database. We will create our own implementation of user service, which is used in the security mechanism. And at the end of the lesson, we would have the properly secured application. Okay, maybe with Basic Auth, which is not so secure in general, but it's still something, right? So let's see how it works. And the first thing, let's give some context to our AI agent. So let me type it. And I'm going to give it some practical. So what we would need to do. As I said previously, we need to introduce Spring Security dependency. Then we need to create a basic security configuration. What else? We need to protect all the existing APIs with Basic Auth. And the first step, we are not going to utilize MongoDB. We have our user purely in memory, so we need an implementation for that. And we need to hardcode something, so let's create a user with the name user and password, well, password. And maybe not so obvious thing here, since we are modifying our endpoints, because they will be modified. Just think about that. Once we protecting endpoints with Basic Auth, it's not possible to directly access them without providing username and password using Basic Auth system. And that means that the unit tests we have already in the project, they will be failing for sure. So we need to fix these unit tests as well. Well, that's pretty much it. We have 6 stories, 6 tasks for our cascade for the first step. Let's give it a try, and well, let me write the command to ping it. All right, it's here. What was interesting, it failed to update POM XML for some reasons. So it gave me the code snippet I have to insert manually. And okay, let's do it. It's faster. It's not that I wrote something. It's still work of AI agent. That would be low Spring data. And then let's go and check what we have here. So we do have a security config. And here we are. Let's quickly go through everything. Well, it's really hard to, I would say it's really hard to validate it now because we don't have the dependency and all the imports are failing. And for example, like I know that this one is obsolete already. It's the old way of doing things and also user details. But anyway, maybe let's go through everything, then we apply the changes, try to build project, and then we will see how it works. We have this in-memory user data detail manager, and we define the user for username and password, and we encoding password using this password encoder, which decrypt, and that's fine. And we use the roles, the user, and we return an instance of in-memory user detail manager. So this looks correct. We do have HTTP basic, and we are saying that every request here will be authenticated. And this is the mechanism for doing that. All right. Then we have our test security config, and this one we need to run our test controller tests, which were failing as we expected, right? That's more or less the same configuration, I would say. I even don't know why. For me, it looks like we are duplicating the thing, but okay, let's keep it here. And task controller. What do we have here? We are reusing test security config, and then, well, I think I don't see we are defining username and password. It's here. All right, should be fine then. And it's here. Okay, let's accept everything and try to build a project and see if it works. All right, it seems like I have opened POM XML somewhere and never saved the changes. Okay, let me then copy paste it manually this time, and I hope this is the last time I'm doing this. Let me close it. All right, it found the same thing. There are a couple of minor warnings about deprecated methods, but they don't affect functionality. So it's up to us, right, if you want to fix them. I probably won't, since the functionality is not affected, but for those perfectionists here, the way you would do it, you would select it here, then go to the chat and ask here, like, please fix it. And then another solution will be offered to you. So let's, it's buildable, the project is okay, let's try to run it and see how it works. I'll write it here, and I will be using browser. So I'm going to the previous URL we used in the last session. And this time it says, no, it's protected, you have to provide credentials. And if I put some bullshit here, right, so it won't work. It says no, sorry. And if I provide the correct credentials, which were user and I think password, okay, then I can see the output. So the endpoint was protected as we expected. That's nice. All right. So next step, we have to add user support to MongoDB, it says, but in general, it's a complex step. We have to do it in a very small pieces, and let's think about that. My approach would be if I start from the domain model first. So we would create a user class that would represent the real users in the system, and then using this domain object user, we would update or create our user repository, the real one, which talks to Mongo database already. So let's proceed with these steps. And the first task was to create a domain object for user, which represents all users in the system. And now let's define some restrictions. Otherwise, we all know how the cascade behaves, right? It will create us the whole application and then we are stuck fixing it. And we definitely don't want this. So what are the restrictions? Let me put it as a list. And let's be more precise. So we want to create user, right? Okay, it's here. Let's check it. And we have a record. So a user has ID, username, email, hashed password. Well, let me fix it right out of the way. All right, and next one, just because I know how Spring Security works, user role is not a single entity, but a set of. Every user could have multiple roles assigned. Alright, it's here. I'm pretty sure it won't be compatible with the way how Spring Security works, but at this stage we don't know about what the requirements of Spring Security, so we are happy with this record user, and let's keep it like that and then change it in the future once we face the problems trying to integrate it to Spring Security, okay? And so we are happy with this class, or record should I say, and then user role we have user and admin, it is also fine. All right, it's time to introduce Mongo repository for persisting these users. And we are going to apply the same approach as we did for tasks, which means we would need to have a specific Spring MongoDB entity, the same as we had for task. And I will show it to you maybe. It was task document, where we had specific annotations, where we defined the collection name and attributes and primary key and so on. So we would like to utilize the same approach here. Alright, so I'm asking to create a Mongo repository for persistent users, and I'm asking also to check how the task stuff was implemented, so we are taking exactly the same approach, right? This is the correct way. Alright, what do we have here? Let's quickly check it. We have user document. Let's start from the easiest. And we have a new collection with the name users. We have ID. And then we have the converters from Mongo document to domain and back. So it looks okay. Then we have, well, it's interesting thing because it didn't copy the same approach. It created, again, two repositories. Okay, it's an interface user repository and specific implementation of this user repository. And it says it's not compilable, duplicate methods. All right, but since this is the interface and there's a way how to fetch user by ID or by username or by email, I think we are fine with that, right? And we can save user as well. Let's accept everything and check if it's still buildable, because I have doubt it will be buildable thing. So I'm accepting everything and let's try to build it. Well, I'm completely lost in what's happened because let's give it a try and check one by one. So here, for some reasons, what was new? I don't know. Like this piece of code, we even never changed it, right? Task data generator. This is from the previous session. Whew. Okay, seems it's the only import missing, but we don't use this import, so we don't need this change at all, right? I'm rejecting it. And task data provider, the same thing. For some reason, Ski decided that we need this import here, which we don't. All right. And then we have, well, I'm really curious, in memory task repository. What's that? It tries to reorganize the way of Spring Beans have been constructed. And in memory task repository, we created only one Mongo task repository. And what's task repository then? It's not here at all. That's really nonsense. Let's reject it as well. We never touch it in this session. I don't want to fix anything in this area. And this one is real. And okay, let's accept here everything. But we never saw that it was successfully built. All right, we are there. What's next? Let's assume we do have this Mongo user repository and it works without any problems because we haven't tested it yet, so we are not sure here. But next step would be to introduce our specific user service. I will show you maybe. If we go to security configuration, and here we are using specific user detail service, so we need to create our own implementation, which is not in memory, but the one that takes the data from MongoDB using our newly created repository. So this is the task for next step. And let me formulate it. So what I'm asking to create an implementation of user detail service that will be using Mongo user repository we just created, and we need to reconfigure it so the newly created implementation will be used instead of this one, the one that's in memory. All right, let's review the changes. Here we start from Mongo user detail service. And this one implements the user detail service, which is a specific interface from Spring Security. Let me close that. So what do we have here? We are returning user details. And by having user name, we are searching user repository, which is the interface for our implementation that works with Mongo. And then we generate the user, which is not the user that we created, but it's a user from security core from Spring. And then we populate some attributes like username, password, and roles. Or we are throwing specific exception if user was not found, like for the users that don't exist in the system. So then let's go to security config, and here, what do we have? We are returning, okay, all the requests should be authenticated. We have our user detail service, and this is our Mongo thing, in basic and build. Well, it's very strange, but all right, cascade if you want it this way, let's keep it this way. And test security probably copy paste all the same, right? Same thing. We're still using user detail service, and this one. No. This one is different. See, like for the testing purposes, for test security config, it decided to keep the in-memory implementation, so it's easier to substitute the username and password and put the proper one rather than having the real Mongo and trying to modify it, maybe run the test container, populate the data and all this stuff. This is a really clever decision, I would say. That's nice. And we are happy with that one. All right, so at the moment we do have our authentication mechanism that takes users from database. And probably it makes sense to run it and see how it works, because it's interesting concept, right? Since all the users should be in the Mongo database, but no one modified Mongo database yet, then there is no way how to get the response from server. But this is a theory, right? So let's check it on practice. Build failed, it says. Something from the past probably. All right, so I'm refreshing it and it says, well, it's still asking for credentials. And if I say user and password, well, it doesn't work anymore. Why? Well, because it takes all the data from Mongo. And here I open visual tool for accessing my Mongo running locally on my machine. So here's the problem. We need to have a user, at least one single record. Like if I go here and I refresh it, we have only tasks. Like I can view some tasks, we can see it. It's around 500 from the previous session, but users, no way, we don't have a single user. Even collection is not here. So let's ask Cascade to create a user. How we can do this? And let's give it another username and password, so it's clearly distinguished. User, password. I'm stopping the app. We don't need it for time being. And I need to go back to write mode. And this is really interesting because it's very special when you're working with the AI agents. Like when I wrote my request and Fire triggered it, all the time I'm not sure which way agent would take this and execute my instructions. Like add a new user, you can do it multiple ways, right? My first assumption would be that, okay, probably it can try connect to Mongo directly, and then using like insert new document or something, it's still possible, right? But instead, the Cascade just scrolled, scans through the whole code base and found, okay, we do have already a seeder for seeding tasks. And then probably, okay, let's reuse the same approach here. And okay, it created Mongo user seed. And before accepting everything, let's take a look at the file. And well, it's the same structure. It's we have this Mongo user repository. We still encoding our password, and then we create user-new and 123 is a password, and we're saving it. And it's on application ready event. And again, we are seeding it only once. So once we have something in our database, this step will be skipped. All right, I'm accepting. Well, that's a nonsense. The application is starting up and seeder will automatically create something. It failed. No, sorry, it failed. Okay, here's another try, and let's hope for the best. All right, now everything looks good. Let's first go to our UI tool and check if the collection. Okay, collection is here. You see it appeared right out of nowhere. And if I go to users or click on the view, we do have this user new, we have email, and we have the encoded password. All right, so let's give it a try. It was user new and 123 as a password. And let me maybe refresh everything. And I'm saying user new and 123 for password. And we're here. All right, that was it for today's session. I hope you found it interesting, and I'm really happy that you stick with me till the end. And if you want to touch the code on your own machine, then there is a link to Git repository. You can download it and check it on your own. And it was Evgeny. See you next time. Bye-bye.